Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. Today we are going to talk about one of those taboo topics that people don't want to talk about, but that is so very important, and that is money. Our guest today is Wei Houng, and he is a award-winning money anxiety breakthrough coach. And that's a mouthful, but what he does is he transforms the way people see money and the way they approach it, and he helps them release that money anxiety so they can actually earn what they're worth. He is the founding member of the Six Figure Academy. He has spoken and inspired thousands of entrepreneurs to break through their internal and mental and emotional blocks so that they can create a lifestyle of prosperity and abundance without burning out, which I have been burned out, and it is no fun. So obviously that's not what we were looking for. So I'm really excited to have him here. Welcome to Leaders of Transformation. We're excited you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. We were already talking earlier, and it's like, okay, you know what? We should just do this. Right. Start the record button because there's all these nuggets coming out, so we might as well share with everybody else. But
what happens when you get a couple coaches together and you start talking shop, and then it's like, wait, why didn't we record all that? That was some good stuff.
Totally. Yeah. So, and for our listeners out there and viewers, we welcome you because, the reason why we do this podcast is for you. We want to inspire you, empower you to really be the difference maker that you're capable of being. And I have to say that there's another part of why I do this too, is because I get to hang out with really cool people and brag on people. I love bragging on people. So Wei is one of those people that I met a few years back. I think initially I was on Facebook or through an introduction, and then we met last year, spent a lot more time getting to know each other last year, and it was so much fun. And he is masterful in terms of his coaching and being able to help people break through their barriers. So I'm just really excited that you're here so I can brag on him and share him with all of you. Afterwards, I know that Wei has a gift for all of our listeners. And so make sure that afterwards you go to leadersoftransformation.com. In the show notes will be all the links so you can get access to those gifts and also get access to Wei. And if you like this show, please go on iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It really means a lot to us. I read those, and it really allows us to reach a greater audience because we get a higher ranking on iTunes based on those reviews. So we'd really appreciate that. And with that, let's dive in. So, we talk about money anxiety, and it kind of sounds like a stupid question, but what is it? Let's start there. And then where does it come from?
Yeah, it's actually not that stupid. It's funny because I go to these networking meetings and I introduce myself, at these networking meetings, and I say, hi, my name is Wei, and I specialize in helping entrepreneurs eliminate money anxiety, right? So that they can monetize their dreams and execute their genius. And I start asking these questions to test if people have money anxiety. And then usually in conversation, somebody's bound to say, oh, yeah, I have money anxiety. And then a few seconds will go by and they'll say, wait, what is money anxiety? It's such a fleeting, insidious little creature inside of us almost that acts like a low-grade fever. And the reason why most people don't realize it because it doesn't present itself like a money anxiety thing. It just shows up in the most inopportune times, especially when we're about to make big decisions or even little tiny ones that build around money. So how it typically shows up is when, whenever things come up with money where, for example, I had a client a few years ago where whenever she thought about bills, when she talked about bills, it would be a white knuckle moment, and she would sit there and start sweating from her palms and everything. And it was a very unconscious behavior. And then, she didn't notice it for years until somebody pointed it out one day. She goes, oh my God. And that's like a symptom of it, Another symptom of money anxiety is overspending. Okay. And the reverse side, when you're hoarding, you're holding on to money, you won't let it go. You're being too cheap. That's a function of money anxiety. Sometimes, money anxiety shows up like people having a lot of obsessive thoughts, not just of themselves. I worked with a couple one time where the breadwinner, the husband, he had no money anxiety, actually. He was actually really good with money, but the money anxiety in the household came from the stay-at-home wife, who was constantly obsessing about what her husband was doing with the money, what's going to happen to the kids' future. So she had money anxiety, and it was impacting the entire family unit.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then and a lot of people, when I say money anxiety, they think, well, that's because it's people who don't have money or they're struggling with paying their bills. Actually, money anxiety is more prevalent with people who actually make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge with when you make a lot of money and you have money anxiety, it's even more difficult to identify, but it becomes more exasperated because, they always say, as William Buffett said, money magnifies more of who you are and what you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do have money anxiety and you start making more money, then money creates greater problems. It magnifies the anxiety to a greater degree. They always like to blame money as the number one reason why relationships are challenged or anything. Actually, it's not. It's just the fact that people have anxiety around money and they have a bad relationship with money, and they bring that relationship into their relationship as a way to buffer out what's really going on. So many times I worked with couples, entrepreneurial couples, that have money anxiety, and they're blaming money for the challenges in their relationship when it was actually really something else. Money then becomes the
Interesting.
easy scapegoat.
Yeah.
When you like knee jerk, or you just default to blaming money as the problem, and then that's a function of money anxiety as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's actually money problems as an actual problem is not a real problem. If you think about
Okay.
it, if the solution to your problem is just to make more money, then it's not a real problem. You
Just go make more money.
just go make
Yeah.
more money, right? I think you and I talked about that. I was like, well, what's
Yeah.
the problem? Now, if making more money won't solve the problem, then that's when we start to realize, okay, great, then it's something else, right?
Right.
But money anxiety is, you have money anxiety when you believe that money is the overall, is the cure all for all your
Right.
challenges. So
So
I mean,
you pretty much described most people, I think, when you covered all those. It's like, okay, so we pretty much all have money anxiety of some
yeah.
form or fashion. For the most part, that is true, right? I mean, I know that with people
Mm-hmm.
who, like you said, people that make a lot of money,
Uh-huh.
then they're worried about even holding on to it. They don't want to lose it. They're playing not to lose at that point.
Yeah.
Afraid of maybe they're not investing it in the right way. What happens if?
Yeah.
And then I've actually had clients of mine who have confessed and said, oh, well, I spend a lot of money. Like I just frivolously go out and spend and shop.
Yeah. Shop
And
therapy, right?
yeah, it's shop therapy. Exactly. And they don't really need to, but they keep doing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like you said, it's really something much deeper than that. It's
Mm-hmm.
not about the money, but the money then gives them, the outlet. They can focus on going shopping, where somebody who doesn't have money maybe doesn't do that,
Mm-hmm.
but then they don't have to see what's actually going on, but then they feel bad about spending the money, and then it's like this vicious cycle because they're now
Right.
wasting money that they know they shouldn't be doing, and then their
Yeah.
spouse goes, why are you doing that? And it all goes
Impacts the
crazy.
relationship,
Yeah.
and then the
Yeah.
anxiety piece over time impacts the health.
Yeah.
And it actually will impact the way money shows up. For
Mm.
those that aren't super uber wealthy, it actually creates this feast or famine type of circumstance in their business
Mm.
and life. If you think about people in general, if you think about money as a person, right? And you're in a relationship with that person, and you're constantly anxious and worried and stressed about that person, does that person even want to be around you?
Great point.
Right. So,
Mm.
people who have anxiety around money, stress around money, will actually push money away because it's on an unconscious level. They're recognizing that the existence of money, because of their irreconcilable challenges around money, it will actually create more stress in their life. So they've unconsciously they will find ways to push money
Mm-hmm.
away.
Hmm.
And this is my approach in the work that I do to help people bring more money in, is to first and foremost resolve the anxiety around money. Then all of a sudden, I mean, it's fascinating because I meet a lot of brilliant, amazing people in the work that I do that have all the tools and all the intelligence and all the strategies and the training and everything to create multi-million-dollar businesses, but they don't have it because of one little simple twist, one little simple key, which is the money anxiety piece. Then when we release that, it's like the floodgates open and money starts rushing in. It's an amazing phenomenon to see. And that's why over the years, I just said, this is like, I'm going to just start there because I didn't used to start there. I used to start with, oh, what are your limiting beliefs? Or, what's your level of awareness? How centered are you? How grounded, all that stuff. But then I realized if we just get the money piece out of the way first, everything else that they already been told on how to do, how to become successful, will start to just fall into place. It's like the keys to the kingdom. It's such a fascinating thing.
Well, and it's what's top of mind. Yeah. And it's what's top of mind for most people anyway. So they're talking about money. So you're really focusing it in as opposed to being conceptual about, what are your limiting beliefs? And they're like, I don't know. But here is a specific area. Right. Well, because you don't know that you don't know, right? It's just like they're just operating underneath the surface. They're not aware of it. But money, they go, ooh, now this is a specific area that I can see my behavior in that area. Yeah. So how did you learn about this? I mean, were you always good with money? And I was just going to say, come on, tell us the real story behind.
Oh my goodness. My journey around money. And I have this conversation almost every day with the people that I come across. I would not wish my own journey around money to my worst enemy. I mean, I just wouldn't, because I was just a lifetime almost, it feels like, of ups and downs, being, making six figures. My first six-figure journey was in my early 20s. I made six figures and I said, this is great. And then I crashed and then nothing. And then made six figures again, going up to upwards of $500,000 and then nothing, And then, at one point in my life, I had almost $500,000 just sitting up, like 400 and something $1,000. Okay. Sitting in the bank account after taxes, after overhead, after putting money into investments. I didn't have to do anything with it. It was just sitting there. And within a month or so, it was gone.
Wow. What'd you do with
it? That's exactly what everybody else said. And at that time, because of the anxiety piece, I sat there and was like, I don't know. I didn't want to deal with it. And it turns out where my anxiety, because it's different for everybody, but my anxiety came from my how money was taught to me when I was younger. I came from a household where money was not talked about at all. It was a single income household. My mom was a stay-at-home domestic engineer, and my father was an electrical engineer, and he was out there doing great things in the world. And he wanted his children, my sister and I, to just focus on academics. We weren't even allowed to get a part-time job, a newspaper route. I don't know if kids still do that these days, but we weren't allowed to do any of those things because we just had to focus on our studies. And so money was not talked about in the house. I wasn't even allowed to. It was an uncomfortable thing to even ask my dad about his job and what he was making and what do you do with the money. So it was not even talked about. So and he didn't even take the time to teach us until one day he decided maybe I should teach my son about money. And how he taught me was sat me across the table and he pulls out this envelope because he apparently planned this out already. And out of the envelope came my first credit card. That's how he wanted to teach me about money. He gives me the credit card and I looked at this like, I think I know what this is. And he goes, this is for emergencies only. And that was all he told me. That's all I remember anyway.
Yeah.
And now if you can imagine a 12, 13-year-old perception of what an emergency is vastly different than like a 35-year-old.
But I had to have it.
But I had to have it. Not 35. I was, he was like more 40, in his 40s, right?
Yeah.
And I sat there, I was like, okay, so for me, at that point in time, that first month of having that card, an emergency did come up. The number one issue of McFarlane's Spider-Man, McFarlane's an artist that draws an amazing Spider-Man, came out in my local comic book store, and it came out with like all these different, it was amazing. It was like, oh my God. And it was flying off the shelf. I says, I need this because I can't, if I miss out, this is a collector's item. So I reached into my Velcro wallet. Remember back then I had Velcro wallets, stuff like that. I opened it up and I still remember the sound because it was associated with what I found. I opened it up and it's like, whoosh, and then I looked in there and there was no cash. And that particular comic book, see, back then, the credit cards wasn't still like widely used. There are stores like that was cash or check, right? And sometimes not even check, just cash. So I go up to the front with my stack of comics and I said, I would like to get this. He looks at me and goes, cash or check? I was like, do you take, I don't have enough cash. And he goes, well, I said, do you take credit card? He goes, no. I was like, oh, I was like, I'll be back. Can you hold on to these? He says, well, these just came out. I can only hold on to it for like the day. I'm like, all right, I'll go get money. He goes, all right. He looks at me and goes, whatever. So I run out. I'm like going, what am I going to do? I got to do something, you know? It didn't occur to me to go ask my parents for money. It didn't occur to me because I was in that state of it's an emergency. Then I remembered because the way my dad also taught me was he said for emergencies only, and he gave me like the whole entire envelope full of, you know, the standard inserts that come with every new card, right? Teach you about APR and everything like that. And I remembered one thing reading it was called cash advance. And I said, oh, and I, you know, being young, you remember everything. I also remembered the pin that came with it too. I was like, oh, well, let's see if this works. I've never done this, but I seen my parents do it before. Across the street, Bank of America, ATM, I put the card in and it was like magic.
Oh, no.
In fact, the entire first month I had the card was magical. You put the pin in, all this money started coming. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I could do more than just the comics. And, you know, I mean, I was, you know, I had an entrepreneurial mindset, but at the same time, this is money. And so I was like, great. Now, at that point, I didn't have money anxiety yet. The end of the month did come around. If you can imagine, my dad got the bill.
You had money freedom at that point.
Cash advance is billed differently. Cash advance is daily APR, I think, or something like that, right? If you, you get charged interest daily.
Yeah, I think so.
And so what happened was that's when the punishment began. I was lectured at, I was yelled at, I was punished. I was, oh my God, I was ridiculed. I was all kinds of different things. And in the beginning I was listening, but you know, like we know when a lot of kids after a certain point, even adults, if it just keeps going, it just becomes painful and then you start to shut down. And I started shutting down. The only thing in my mind I wanted to say, when is this going to end? When is this going to stop? And it did stop and it did end. It ended when my dad reached out his hand and demanded that I give the credit card back to him. And he said to me, you're not ready yet. I'll give this back to you when you're ready. To this day, I still don't remember the moment when he said, hey, you're ready. In that moment, little Wei learned a very profound lesson that when it comes to money, or as little Wei perceived money, Wei gets in trouble. And the only way to stop that pain is to have someone take the money away from, or give the money away. And then the pain stops. Very powerful lesson to learn in my youth. Very inaccurate lesson because it's like, what? Right. But that carried through. And I didn't realize this was the problem until I started looking at my cycles and behaviors, what I did in life, which was every time I had a windfall of money, a bunch of money come in, I would find a way to kick it out. Some way, some fashion, it would just go out. You know, there was one point I was well on track and I had like a tri-state business. I had offices in 3 different states and I was on my way to doing $1 million, okay, breaking the 6 to 7 figure barrier. And then somehow completely self-sabotaged, didn't just like say, oh, okay, I'm just hovering. It completely crashed.
Wow.
I crashed the whole entire business and I take full responsibility for it now. Back then I was blaming the world and everything else around me. And I started doubting myself. I said, maybe I'm not cut out for this entrepreneur stuff. Who am I to be trying to entrepreneur? I went to school for engineering, you know, I don't know how to make money, you know, even though I made money up to that point, I somehow believed that I didn't know how to make money. So all kinds of things started to play and this cyclical thing kept happening. And it wasn't until I sat down and really looked at the pattern and really looked at where it came from, the root cause, if you will. Okay. That's an NLP term. It's like the root cause of where this emotional charged based decision process around money came from. And it wasn't until I found that really kind of flipped the switch on how money was, you know, the role that money plays in my life. And I thought it was just unique to me. So I didn't think much of it after I started to figure that out. And so I just kept doing what I was doing until one day I had the need to apply it towards a client, and it worked. And I said, wait. And I tried it. So I tried it on another client, and it worked for them too. I said, and not only that, it started to shorten the process of when I first started working with a client to help them bring more money into their business or their life to when it actually started to happen. And I said, oh, this could very well be the keys to the kingdom when it comes to helping people resolve their challenges around money. Because the more we make it about money, the more stuck we become about it. And it wasn't until I started doing that, I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is how we fix the money piece. At least where we start anyway.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many different stories and people that had different experiences, whether like yours with your father not actually teaching you at all about it. And then you created and then there are other things, like I know for myself, well-intending parents, I'm sure your father meant only the best for you, even totally. Just having you focus on your schooling. I mean, most parents would go, no, you know what? We don't want you to have to worry about that right now. And in the process of doing that, not teaching you something that is so very important. And I know for myself, we talked about this, right? I mean, seeing my parents, seeing my dad go bankrupt and the impact of that on the household, and then working for basically working for free, and always investing. For me, it was like, oh, just invest in the business, and delayed gratification. One day we're going to have this business, and it's going to be successful, and then I'll be rewarded. And I see how that actually played out in my life, and how I had to work hard for money, and then realizing that even when we did make money, when we lost our business, when I was in my 20s, and it just like went from, and like, obviously there was something around those money anxiety, money conversations that my parents had and that I had that even created that. It was like, like you said, we sabotage ourselves. And there's so many different stories, but I think when we look back and say, what do we learn about money? Most people, I would think, did not get taught how to use money, as a tool, and how to use it intelligently. And school certainly doesn't teach us that as well, know. So now you're teaching it, and you've got some different programs. So tell us a little bit about what you do with your clients now. How do you get over this? So you identify, okay, they've got money anxiety. How do you get past that? What are some of the tools that you use? Yeah,
over the years, I developed a blueprint that I've, kind of tested over, stress tested, with clients and myself in a variety of circumstances. A lot of people said, oh, so you get rid of money anxiety forever. I said, well, no, we're human beings. And as long as we live in a capitalistic world, which we do, as you continue to grow financially, money anxiety different forms of money anxiety will show up. Right. Especially if you start going to the realms of a money that you've never experienced before, outside your comfort zone, and it shows back up again. Right. And so it's a very simple process. It just requires diligence and kind of staying on point with it. One of the things that I found that even just over the last year or two has fine-tuned the process is starting first and foremost identifying how you uniquely make money in this world. Okay. And one of the things which you've experienced just recently in terms of that process, right? It's one of the things that has really kind of almost like put my previous process on steroids, which is everybody's built differently. Everybody has a unique representation. We're all driven differently in different ways, motivated by different things, right? And as such, we can't just assume that how one person makes money successfully is the way, if you just follow their step 1, step 2, step 3, you're going to make just as much money. Because what drives them is different than what drives you. If, let's say, you're a hammer and I am a screwdriver, and you keep teaching me how to operate and make money like a hammer would make money, it's not going to work. I mean, you could possibly use the handle of a screwdriver as a hammer and use that for a little bit, but eventually, and I've done this before, that resin grip is going to crack, right? And all of a sudden the screwdriver is broken, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're the hammer. He's like, I don't understand what happened here. I've been doing this all my life. It's working fine. It's like, and then we forget, oh, well, I'm not a hammer. I'm a screwdriver. What's going on here, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the first step. It almost has nothing to do with the money piece. It's to identify what kind of money-making tool you are in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And then from there, we start to uncover the breadcrumbs, the clues, because it's such an insidious thing. It's not full-time there. So we start to ask this very specific questions to start to uncover different breadcrumbs that kind of like Hansel and Gretel, what leads us back home to where we want to go. And then after those breadcrumbs, so to speak, start to reveal themselves, like, I would ask questions like, what do you fear most about money? And then we explore that. And then we break that down and deconstruct those stories, how did your dad feel about money? What do you remember about that? And we start to expand on that as well. And within the language itself, being a trainer of neurolinguistics, it's such a fun thing to do, to deconstruct the language and the meaning behind the words chosen, which is something I make sure I pay attention to, because embedded within a language choice that comes out of the client's mouth are the clues that'll help us construct the story, the bad money story that is running each time you're about to make a sale, each time you're about to make a decision on whether or not to spend money on X, Y, and Z, each time you have a conversation with someone that you care about or love about money, then the story that starts to run in the background, once it starts kicking in, will drive your decisions on an unconscious level on the language, what you choose to do, what you decide to do about a circumstance, the words that you say in that sales conversation, which will ultimately impact the end result. What if I were to tell you that a bad money story will create an undesirable end result almost every time in a sales conversation? That a sales conversation is not as unpredictable as one would believe it to be. Because so many people, I know a lot of people, they go with money anxiety, they'll go into sales conversation like it's like a crapshoot. It's like, oh, let's see what shows up. I never know what's going to happen. But in fact, you do, because on an unconscious level, you are already starting to cultivate the language choice to say, or things to say in that conversation. And if you have a bad money story running, if you have money anxiety going on in the background, it is going to absolutely drive that conversation.
So give us an example. What would that look like maybe take one of your clients or as an example of what the language is that they would say and how that would show up? Just so for people, because, we take it out of conceptual so people can actually see,
Sure. It's a combination of language, physicality, energy, and just the overall presentation. Okay. So one of the things that you can think about is, okay, so I had a client I had a lot of clients that actually did this. So this is a very common thing that shows up. They would give the prospect or the lead a discount before they even said the original amount. They would discount the price in their head. But then even when they delivered it, they didn't deliver it. Oh my God, I am giving you such a good deal. They would say something like, okay, so for example, let's say your offering is like $5,000 for this program or $5,000 for this product. And in the conversation, you bought into the other person's money story. And you said, oh my God, they probably can't afford this $5,000. And you start to justify, you start to feel bad. And all of a sudden, as you get closer and closer, you feel almost apologetic. Like you're apologizing to them. It says, I'm going to give you a price right now. And in their mind, they're not even going to say $5,000. They've immediately said, it's $2,500. And, and I know this might be all of a sudden it went from, I know this is a great product. It's a service. I'm going to help you. Oh my God. Oh. And then all of a sudden it retreats in itself. And you start to turn soft. Instead of standing tall, you start to, kind of play a little bit smaller. Your voice tonality changes. You start to feel like weird pain in your body. You start to feel panicky, whatever the case may be. However subtle it is, this is what we need to start paying attention to, because that's what's coming off. And then the person across, the person hearing this and seeing this, they may not consciously see that or recognize it like I would looking at the person, but they will feel like there's some kind of discord happening. And we know from our own experience that if something doesn't feel right, we're not going to necessarily express it. We'll like, that doesn't feel right. We'll just decide not to decide. We'll just choose not to choose, or just to kind of walk away. And this is how some forms of money, but this is how a very common way that money anxiety presents itself. It's like, oh my God. So like when you go see somebody speak, right? And they're making an offer from the stage, most of the time throughout the whole entire conversation or the presentation, they're like confident, they're standing strong. Then they get to the offer and they turn into like Schmeagle. It's like,
oh my gosh,
I have something. You've seen it before, right?
Oh, totally.
They turned into a totally different person. You're like, what just happened? Why are you stammering? You were so eloquent and so smooth before, and now you're like,
Oh my gosh. I won't mention names, but I've seen it where they'll do like a whole two-day program, totally unscripted, meaning they're not following notes. They're just flowing in it. But they get to the close and they got their script and they got their thing and they start ramping. It's like, what the hell are you doing? What is that about? And everybody in the room is confused. They're like, we loved you up at what just happened?
What just happened? And it's not because they're judging them. Yeah, they're not judging them in that moment. They're just confused.
Just confused, yes. And then they don't do anything because they're like, something's off and I don't know what it is. So therefore I don't make a decision.
Nobody ever buys out of confusion.
So yeah. Yeah.
Maybe old people do, that's like elder
maybe
abuse,
pressure, maybe pressure. Yes.
Pressure, yeah.
But not, they're like, I don't know. That is so true. And I think you just nailed it with the, discounting it before. And I've done that. Oh my gosh. I've done that where I'm listening and I'm going, oh, there's no way they're going to be able to afford this. Let me help them out. And what's interesting is that when this happened not that long ago, I was talking to somebody about this and he was saying, when you do that, you're not holding them up high. You're not holding them and giving them the opportunity. If it's too much for them, then give them the opportunity to actually say, hey, you know what? I'm not able to do that. And then adjust it. Have the conversation maybe first, right? Because maybe it's a fear or doubt or value assessment or whatever. Sure. But leave it. Don't make the assumption, because then what we're actually doing is making nothing of them. We're actually lessening our own perception of how capable they are paying it. It's actually insulting them and thinking that, oh, well, you can't afford to pay this. Well, maybe they can, and so, it's very interesting. As I said, I think that we've all can relate to that at some level.
And that technique is very well placed and very well taught, and it's taught in so many different ways, and it absolutely works.
What, the discounting, you mean, like from stage or whatever? Yeah, the irresistible offer. Yes,
right. It absolutely
that's different.
Works to like moving forward after you eliminate the anxiety piece, because what happens is that if you apply that strategy and you still have money anxiety, the energy is not going to change. You're still going to. You might increase your conversions a little bit. You might actually do a little bit better, and it still doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
The problem is, why did you discount to begin with? What's driving that inability to see that you're about to give them something that could help them in that moment, and you're being apologetic about it and you're discounting it? Why is that happening, that you have to apply this tactic to kind of justify, oh yeah, that's right, I'm supposed to give them and then give them a chance? That's a tactic, and it's almost like a Band-Aid solution. Okay. So I'm not actually saying that there's anything wrong. That's a brilliant tactic. It's absolutely a way to kind of logically reconcile why that's happening. But does that solve the emotional piece? Does that solve the internal piece? That inner child that runs our unconscious mind, So in a pinch, that solves the problem. But we have to remember to also get rid of what created that decision to say, I need to discount that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because our inner child is not logical.
Yeah.
It never is.
Very, very powerful. And then when you talk about getting rid of money, and you alluded to that in your story, it's like, making money and then getting rid of it because maybe you're not feeling like you deserve it, or maybe you do convert more and you make more money, but you're still, if you're not comfortable with money, then you're going to kick it out anyway. And so it doesn't really work out. So for our listeners out there, what are some of the, so first of all, becoming aware of it, obviously that's
Right.
the first thing. And then how do they maybe give us a little tip on what can they do? Obviously, we're going to give them your website. Go to his website, get, I think you have what's the name of you have a gift that
Oh
is
yeah,
going to, yeah.
I have a lot of things
Let's
actually.
talk, let's talk about that actually. And then we'll give them
The
a
gift,
tip. Yeah.
or so
Yeah.
the gift I have for your listeners is an audio program.
Okay.
I create audio programs in this studio. I call them neurotuning audios, where it's a combination of language patterns that speak directly to the unconscious mind, which is where a lot of our challenges lie. So we can unlock some of those problems, combined with binaural frequencies and very well crafted soundtracks that are designed to relax the mind so that we loosen our grips on what holds us back. And this particular audio program, I believe, is on motivation. So it has a start there. We have to be motivated and everything. Okay. It's either motivation or, yeah, I think it's motivation. I think that's what I'm giving you. So that's one gift.
Whichever one it is, it'll be good.
It'll be good. It'll be good. The reason I put it in there because it got good reviews.
Yeah.
And then I also have a book that I wrote, an ebook called From Money Anxiety to Six-Figure Mastery.
That's a good one.
Really kind of digs deep on a lot of what I'm talking about. Not as deep as the program, because I mean there's only so much we can do, because this is such a deep challenge for most of us that we can only touch on it a little bit at a time. But it's a great starter. It's a great primer, because when you get that book, it also immediately drops into a 5-part e-series, and this is all free, that takes you through exercises to go even deeper. Okay. And I know what I've started to do right now, which I found has been very helpful for people, because, at the end of the day, I want to be able to help people wherever they at, whether or not they can use any of my services, at least give me a moment to spend a little bit of time. And so what I also want to do, and I just decided this when we were talking before we started, to provide a free 45-minute session with probably me. It's a money breakthrough session where we spend the whole time really talking about, kind of really going right to the source of, what are your money problems? Why aren't you where you want to be financially? And not address it through the tactics or strategies, but really kind of starting to kind of clear the mud away to find the root, right?
Yeah.
And I think, to answer your question of the tip, where people should start, is first and foremost, stop beating yourself up. I mean, they say self-forgiveness is one of the biggest challenges and the most healing processes. So one of the things you want to start doing is start forgiving yourself and forgiving your teachers of money. Because what happens is we start to come to this awareness, like, oh my God, my parents taught me this. They suck, and I always
You're
have to
blaming and all that.
I know.
Yeah,
And
not good.
and then the inner child says, wait a minute. I've been running this program because I've been trying to keep you safe. Because what my dad represented for me in that moment wasn't the guy who was just punishing me for it, but my dad also in that moment represents authority, the person who keeps the roof over our head, safety, home, love, all these things necessary for the upbringing of a child. And so why did I keep that teaching around for so long? Was because it was taught to me by someone that I cared about.
Yeah, and if you disrupt one and start blaming him, then all of those other things
could be
challenged at the same time.
Yeah. And those things there's a danger of that world crumbling. And, we forget that inner child in us never grows up. And that inner child is actually is the most powerful part of our unconscious mind. At the age of 5 or 6, we stop, literally counting the age on an unconscious level. We just become a really, really smart 5-6-year-old. But that's what drives that. Okay. And just simply asking the questions, what am I afraid of when it comes to money, and asking a question, well, is money, I think one of the first things to identify is money, if I had abundance of money, would this problem go away? And I say, well, yes. Then what's making it a problem? Why can't I just go make the money? So those are things that I think the key thing is taking ownership that there is anxiety there. Okay. And then you can identify what type of anxiety it is. Most of the time I had a client that came in for years. He actually fought. He says, I don't have money anxiety. I don't have money anxiety. He finally agreed to sit down and have some time and have coffee with me. And I just ask a few questions, about it. And he goes, holy cow. He didn't say cow. I think he said something else. He goes, I have money anxiety.
You're like, hey, no kidding. Welcome to the party.
I know. Thanks for being human, in a capitalistic world. And the whole thing is that, we live in a world where money is such a big part of everything. And, as much as we can fight it, because I know there are people out there that says money isn't everything. That's fine if you were born in an era where money didn't really kind of drive or facilitate the ability for you to do great things on this planet. You have a choice. Either you keep fighting and going against the grain of this massive behemoth that's driving the world today, or you learn how to play the game and play the game so well that you can actually move up the echelon and change the rules. Be the Elon Musks of the world. Be the Bill Gates and the Steve Jobs of the world, where you can dictate and start to drive, political change in the economy.
Yeah. Based
on your behavior and based on what you drive and push for.
Yeah.
Okay. You really want to make an impact? Stop being that starving, what is that? Hunger striking.
Starving artist?
Yeah, starving artist, and saying, this is what I fight for, this is what I stand for. Mm-hmm. Learn the game, get good at the game.
Yes.
So that you can actually build a foundation. If you became a billionaire, became a billionaire tomorrow, could you not make an impact on the world? Could you or could you not?
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
And a greater impact.
A greater
impact. I mean, it's like people say it's a necessary evil, and even that language.
Oh my God, that's anxiety right there, all over it.
Yeah.
Quick test. Do you love money? Yes or no? And if you say no, you have money anxiety. But if you say yes, I go to the next question. The next question is, do you love debt? And most people will say no. Great, you have money anxiety. Because I never said it was good debt or bad debt. You just assumed it was bad debt. And I do that. It's so funny doing that in a big room full of people. And I've done it all over the world. And the same response. It's a very universal response. How many of you love money? Most people will raise their hand. I love money, because they know I'm talking about it. So they want to say, I love money. And I said, those of you who didn't raise your hand, you have money anxiety already, so you don't have to participate the rest of the way. But for those of you who raise your hand, okay, this is the next question. How many of you love debt? And maybe one or two hands will go up. And then I said, okay, for those of you who didn't raise your hand, you have money anxiety.
Yeah.
And people are like, what?
Yeah, that's why I said it's pretty much all of us. And at some level or other, we have it, because we live in this world. And the world, actually, society, media, it suggests the scarcity of it, rather than looking at the abundance of it. And it's so funny, people say, money's not important to me. And I'm like, oh, well, what happens with things that are not important? Like you talked about relationships, it tends to leave, it doesn't hang around. If you don't care for a friend, you say they're not important to you, or a spouse, they're not going to hang around for too much, too long. Yeah. And very interesting stuff. Oh my gosh, Wei, this is so cool. It even as I know we've talked already before about this, and I knew how fascinating this was, but to listen to you actually talk about it, it's like such a rabbit hole that you can go down.
Oh my goodness.
And such an opportunity. We could probably do 6-12 podcasts on this and not even touch the surface of what it means. But how do people reach you, the free gift, and also, some of the other programs that you've got, and also that 45-minute session, which you said is likely with you. So you have a team as well around you that you're building. So, but you said most likely it'll be with you.
Yeah. For your audience, I'll make sure it's me. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And I'm sure we're going to have you're probably going to be flooded with calls going, I think I need to have that conversation. So, which would be really awesome. And thank you for that generous gift, because your time is so valuable. Right. And I know you're doing a lot of different things. We didn't even touch on some of the other things. This is just the one piece, which is your core piece of what you do. But you have so many businesses, and you're you've got your hands in different things and how to create transformation in the world. But
Yeah.
so specifically as it relates to this, where do they go to connect with you?
Yeah, so you have the link for the free neurotuning audio program.
Yes.
If they want to go, and I don't have a lot of space, so it's first come, first served.
Right.
But for the 45-minute money breakthrough session,
Mm-hmm.
they just simply go to thesixfigureacademy.com/apply,
Okay.
and just go there,
Okay.
and they'll get to schedule and everything. They can. I also have a podcast that just talks about
Yes.
this stuff that you've been on, which is
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
Just fun.
Talk to my own psychosis on there.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It's called The Money Lab, and it's everywhere. You can go on Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube even. And if you want to find out all the ways to connect on that one, you go to the sixfigureacademy.com/radio, and you can find it there. Other than that, you can just email me directly too. It's wei@thesixfigureacademy.com. And that's the number 6, not 6 spelled out. Even though I do own that now, I finally own it now because somebody let it lapse, and I was like, "Oh, I'm picking that up."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an option. So that is fantastic. Wei, thank you so very much. I think this was eye-opening, and I don't know anybody out there that isn't impacted by money in some way. We need to have it to, that's the kind of, we're living in a money economy. So, this is important.
I love what you said is like, about the friends. And if you don't think your friend's important, your friend's not going to stick around. And that's really the goal, is to, how do we then have that relationship with money be a friendly one?
Yes.
How do we make money your ally? Almost like a family member that is there to support you through thick and thin. That's really how we should have money, as a tool, as a support system for what it is that we're here to do.
Interesting that you say that, because I actually triggered, because, money, people say money is a tool.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, money's a tool. And I'm like, wait a second. Do I call my friend a tool? You might. Right. Hey, you're such a tool. But that means something different, right? So, right. Do we think of that money as a tool, or do we think of it as a valued friend that we're in partnership with, and we're creating something really awesome? Very interesting. Just even listening to what I was, was what was going on in my head there. So it's a journey. It's a journey. So thank you so much for sharing. And I encourage our listeners to go and check out all of what you've got, your ebook, your meditation. We'll make sure all of those all those links are in the show notes, so people can get access to that. Yeah. And for our Leaders of Transformation community, I'll give them first heads up and say, hey, take advantage of this 45-minute session, because like you said, you only have a certain amount of time to be able to do that. Yep. And we really appreciate it. And for our listeners out there, you know what? Don't wait. If you're listening to this, I would encourage you to go and take advantage of that, because Wei is generously giving away these gifts, and I've checked them out. I actually read your ebook. That was one of the first things I think I had. I think that's the ebook that you're talking about, and it really was eye-opening for me. And I was like, oh man, I think I have money anxiety. So, and there's so much freedom on the other side of that, is to be able to know how to deal with it. So I encourage you to do that.
What you've done with it. I've seen it, and it's so cool seeing you going through that journey itself too. That's what makes it so fun.
It's a process. It's a process. We're still on the journey, but yes, feeling much, much different about it. And and for those of you that are listening, I always talk about taking action, because transformation only happens when we take action. So today, even just next time you pull out that credit card and you go to use it, or cash, think about it. What is the conversations going on around in your head? Start to notice what's your money anxiety? What are your money conversations? And are they serving you, or maybe they're limiting you, or maybe why are you spending money on that thing? Why do you think you need that thing? And it can start the process, and then go to Wei, and Wei can take care of the rest with you. But
suss it out.
We'll suss it. Yeah, you'll suss it out. So thank you for listening, Wei. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you always. And everyone have a great day. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon.